Before I show you how to format your paragraphs into columns, numbering, bullets, line spacing, or indents, we need to know what makes a paragraph in Microsoft, or what is a paragraph according to Microsoft. Because in my English class, I was taught that 3 or 4 sentences make up a paragraph, not according to Microsoft, where a paragraph is anywhere where you hit the Enter key on the keyboard, also known as a hard return. So for example, when I go ahead and click on the text to activate the text box so I can start working on the text therein, we've got, I think, about 4 or 5 sentences here. Now, according to my English class, that makes up a paragraph, of course, separated by a blank space here, line. And then I got 3 or 4 more lines here, sentences. But according to Microsoft, are those paragraphs? And why is that important? Because when you start using other features in PowerPoint here, or even Word, I say Microsoft because it applies across the board here with those 2 programs, that when you apply other features, it may just apply to one paragraph or both paragraphs, depending upon if Microsoft sees those as paragraphs. So for example, if I was in Microsoft Word, I'd come up here on the Home tab and go to the font group and click on the Show Hide Codes. Because down below, if this was a paragraph, it would show me a paragraph marker. And I suppose it would have one here, and that could be its own paragraph, and then one down below. So after these lines, from that point, that paragraph marker to the left and up to the next one is considered a paragraph. All those lines would be grouped into one paragraph, what Microsoft would see as a paragraph. So since that's not available in PowerPoint, how can I tell if these are paragraphs according to Microsoft? As you recall in an earlier video, when I double-click, it selects a word. When I triple-click, it selects all the lines within what it considers to be a paragraph. Cool. So if I come down here and triple click, that's a paragraph, separate from that one up above. In fact, if I come in between and triple click, that little paragraph marker, yeah, it's its own paragraph according to Microsoft. So that's important. And why? Because when, let's go ahead and do one more example. When I hit enter before however, is that its own paragraph now? Triple click to let's see. Yes, it is, because it doesn't select anything above it or below it. And triple click here, doesn't select that below it, the however, that paragraph, and triple click and nothing above. And in fact, you'd come in here and hit enter to make it appear to us that it's more separated and that's its own paragraph. However, let's hit the backspace key a couple of times to delete those hard returns. If you add a soft return, which is by gently hitting the enter key on the keyboard, no, I'm kidding. It's holding down the shift key. When you hold down the shift key and hit enter, that's known as a soft return. And soft returns are not seen as separate paragraphs, although it appears to us by Microsoft. So if I go ahead and I triple click up here, it selects even that down below, even though what we did previously by hitting the enter key, a hard return, it saw it as something separate. So let's do it again. Shift enter, another soft return. So we have 2 soft returns. And if you saw the coding in Microsoft Word, it would show, instead of paragraph markers for soft returns, these little arrows pointing back and in on themselves. So you can see the difference between the two. But again, it's not available in PowerPoint. So if I come up here and triple click, again, even though it looks like to us they're separate paragraphs, not according to Microsoft, and that's important. And so why would you want to use soft returns anyways? Well, one reason is that if you want to go ahead and make it appear to others that they're 2 separate paragraphs, points of focus, thoughts, ideas, then you'd use the soft return. That is, if you want to be able to apply formatting to, well, those 2 lines that are viewed as one paragraph without having to go ahead and say, okay, let me apply it to this one, then I got to go to the next one because that's seen as a separate. Not according to Microsoft right now, it sees all this as one. But the way we see it, they're 2 separate ones. For example, let me come down below and let's do something simple. Come up here on the Home tab, go to the Paragraph group, and let's work on our alignments. So the default that's highlighted is left align. So notice how I'm not selecting all the lines within the paragraph. When I apply this, like I want to center it, it'll update that paragraph because it can see the hard returns, the code before that and after, and not apply to all the text within the text box. So there's center line, and then here's right. You can see it lines all the way over to the right, and then I want to justify it, which means that it takes the lines and it says make sure you're touching the left edge and the right edge, and to do that we may have to add extra spacing in between the words. Now the last one just didn't pass it because it didn't go all the way over to the end in the first place, so it keeps the spacing in between the words the same. And so let's go ahead and go back to left. So it applied just to that paragraph. But if I come up here and I click anywhere there and I say center, and you're like, oh, what the fudge? it applied to this second paragraph. Up. Is that really a second paragraph? No, because we did something soft. I got to be hard on this, folks. I have to do hard returns if I want to keep them separate, right? Pun intended. So if you want to go ahead and hit back, and then, hit the backspace key and get rid of those softies, and then hit enter a couple of times, then what you do to one, come up here and center it, you're good. So let's go ahead and hit undo and bring it back. Okay, next feature in our paragraph group. How about columns? So right now we've got one column, meaning it goes from the left edge of the text box all the way over to the right. It's not broken into two sections or two columns. And why would you want to do that? Well, if you think like a good article, it's broken where you got small columns to read, because when it's long and you're about in the middle going from left to right and you get to the end of learning, now as I back up here on computer, I can't keep track. That's too long to come back here to wrap around to find out what line I should be on next. So if you break it into shorter lines here, by breaking this into two columns, then you get to the end, you can wrap around and know where you've left off. A lot easier than going all the way over here. So to be able to break this into two separate or more columns, you can click anywhere within the text box. It doesn't have to be a paragraph. And then come up here on the Home tab to the paragraph group and go ahead and click on Add or Remove Columns. Click on it. Let's see, there's one. That's the default. Two, get a preview of it. That's nice. Click on it. And you can see that the first paragraph is in the first column, and if it doesn't bleed over into the next one, it looks like it's just starting the second one right up at the top. What I don't like is that they're so close together. Kind of blurs the comprehension of like, am I supposed to go over? So what we can do is come back up here and click on it and get more columns, or the options. And well, you can add more columns here, but I want the spacing in between the columns. So you can go ahead and type it in, or let's just go to, I think about a ½ inch will be pretty huge. Click okie dokie, and okay, there we go. That's nicer. And if I want to go back to one column, of course you can do that. And then next, let's go ahead and go over text direction. So with my cursor flashing it anywhere within the text box here, come up on the Home tab, again paragraph group, we'll be staying here pretty much throughout the entire video. And let's change it from our default horizontal text direction to rotate. Ooh, that's pretty crazy, unless everybody was at a seminar for beds and laying on their pillows getting this presentation. That ain't working. So how about instead, let's see, they're stacked, and that's not going to work. To kind of drive the point home, let's create a text box right here really quick that, since it's about us, let's type in Dreamforce and have a pull focus or pull quote, where we're taking part of the text and putting in what's called a text box, where you're pulling, well, it's not exactly a quote, but part of the text and putting in a box here. So we can do that by coming up here on the Insert tab, going to the text group and doing text box, and clicking and dragging about yay big. Okay, it's going to be the company that we're focused on, Dreamforce. And then we need to change the direction of it. So we come back up here to the paragraph group, and then we click on text direction. And we want it stacked. Now it's not going to be stacked after we selected it, because look at the shape of the box. I mean, that's just kooky. We got to have more spacing vertically so it can stack appropriately. So we got to hover over the bottom middle resizing handle until we can see arrows pointing up and down, and then click and drag, and you can see how it's starting to come in, but not quite yet. So click and drag some more. There we go. Now it's stacked. And of course you can go ahead and click and drag to select your text, and I'll make it bold and change the size to 20. You see that? Let me give it some red. It's doing what's called text wrapping, so it's not going to push it open to make it fit, but it's wrapping. And so if you want to learn more about this option that's turned on for this text box, you can come up here on the Home tab, go to the paragraph group, and click on the text direction to more options, and it opens up the task pane. And then it goes right to the text options as opposed to shape or focused on text. And of the three options, it's this one right here, the text box. And you can see down below how it's wrapping the text in the shape. You can go ahead and click and drag the middle resizing handle down further, or just uncheck that and it automatically fits. Whatever works best for you, but there we go. See, that makes more sense to me and why you'd want to use that. Nice. Okay, next, let's go about line spacing here. So spacing in between the lines. Maybe you're happy with the default single spacing, but if you'd like maybe 1.5 spacing or double spacing between your lines here, if you just want it for this paragraph, then just click in that paragraph and then come up here to the paragraph group and click on the line spacing. And then there's 1.5. Hover over it to get a preview of it. See that? Okay, that's fine. And it only applies to that one because I didn't select the other paragraph with it. And we can go down and see what other options we get. Line spacing. Well, we get the alignment. We already covered that here, but you get it in this box as well. And then you get indentation. Now, indentation, you can do it numerically by typing it in here, get in particular with the accuracy of the text and the special, or you can do it by these little guys right here. They're both related. So first off, let's do it numerically, and then as we do it here, keep an eye on these guys up above. Well, let me go over it really quickly. This little guy up here is the top one. It's known as the first line indent. The next one that's pointing up is the hanging indent, and the one down below, that square, well, I guess it's more of a rectangle, that one's the whole paragraph. And you can see them right here. This one's the whole paragraph, and these specials are hanging and first line. So what's a hanging? That means that this line right here, the first line in the paragraph, is going to be hanging overboard while everybody else squishes underneath it. So it hangs out. So to do that, we got to give it some room to hang. So we got to take the whole paragraph and, move it over. So all these lines, it's just applying to this paragraph here. All these lines got to be pushed over, right? About yay far, maybe a half. And then the first line needs to hang from it by, let's say, I don't know, 3.3 inches. Okay, let's go ahead and click OK. Now when I click OK, there you go. Everybody gets moved over, and then this guy gets pulled back. So he's hanging. He's just chilling out there. He's hanging. And you can see up above that we've got well, again, that's the first line indent. That's the hanging indent, and then that's the whole paragraph. So you saw how everything got shifted over, but it kept its distance between the first line and the hanging. In any case, keep that in mind, and let's go down to the next one. So that's the hanging, where the first line hangs out. How about if we do a first line indent, where instead of the first line hanging out, the first line gets indented, and then the others, as it were, are hanging out. So to do that, let's come back up here. We've got our cursor flashing in that paragraph, and go to line spacing options. We'll change it. Well, we don't have to have indentation where the whole paragraph gets shifted over, at least not for the first line option. Let's just do first line. Get shifted over by about a ½ inch. Sound good to you? Okay, I'll go with that. And there you go. See the difference? And notice that when I'm in this paragraph, how that first line is way over. That applies to that first line. In this paragraph, how that's just the opposite. Pulls the first line out and it pushes the others in. So where the first line is out, known as a hanging, when it's in, it's known as a first line indent. Now you can do it that way numerically by typing it in, or with my cursor down below, you can actually move these guys around. So if I hover over the bottom square there, that moves the entire paragraph. Click and drag. Moves everybody over. Now if I want to be able to mess with the first line, well, I can either go ahead and click on the first line here and move it out, and it becomes a hanging. Now if I click on that little guy down below, I can make it more indented with everything but the first line. So that's the hanging indent option right there. Bring it up closer so it's not hanging out so far. And then I can click and drag that bottom one so the entire paragraph gets moved over closer to the left margin here. So again, you can do it numerically, or we can just fix this all together. If you want to bring it back to the way it was and you don't get the undo option, again, you can click on the drop down arrow and set everything to 0, or just if you're good at doing it graphically by clicking on these guys to align it there. So he's no longer indented. He's totally lined up with the hanging indent. And then you want it back against the margin here, or the edge of the box. Then click on that bottom little rectangle and drag everybody together back to where we were. Nice. Okay, next, how about if we want to go ahead and resize this text box? If you resize a text box, like in the bottom right-hand corner, click and drag the resizing handle and you push it in, and it starts shrinking the text to the box, well, there's some defaults that are applied to this text box. If you don't want it to do that, you can go ahead and right-click on the border of that text box and go down to Format Shape. And we don't want to focus on the shape options. You want to focus on the text options. And let's go to the text box. And there we go. It wants to shrink the text on overflow. So when you start crunching it in, it's overflowing, but to keep it in the box and not spill out, it's going to shrink the text. So you could say, don't auto-fit it, and it just text box is shrunk, but the text is still fitting where it used to be. And make your changes there, but I'm going to go ahead and just say undo all that, and we'll go back to shrink text or just resize it. But if I undo it, it's back to the way it was that I originally liked it. So we'll go ahead and close out of that. And let's bring this back up to speed here with the other one. Click and drag this over so it aligns with that. And then click and, oh, see, that's not even perfectly aligned there. Ooh. And then click and drag the bottom guy. All right. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.